Pie charts. They're easy to make, but they're easy to get wrong. I'm Peter MP, and I'm going to show you how to make a better pie chart in Tableau. But before we get building our chart, let's talk about when we would use a pie chart and why. We're going to use a pie chart when we're trying to understand the parts of a whole. And what that means is that the pieces of the chart are going to be proportional to the values, and that the sum of the pieces are going to add up to the total. Some typical examples of this would be a stacked bar chart, a pie chart, or a tree map. All of these let you see one piece in relationship to the whole, and they're proportional. So let's take a closer look at the pieces of a pie chart, because understanding how a pie chart does what it does will help us make a better one. So the pieces of a pie chart are typically called a wedge. And each wedge is going to represent one of the categories in our data. And the part that is proportional to our data is the wedge area. It's here that we're going to use the numbers to be represented in our chart. With parts of a whole, it's like taking all of our numbers and turning them into percents, so that we have our total, and then each number is a fraction of that total. So let's get started building this. We're going to use this data set from Kaggle. It's the Students' Performance and Exams data set. It's going to have some good categories for us that we can use as we're making our pie chart. So let's get started. Let's load that in and take a look at it. I've already downloaded it, so I just need to load it into Tableau. So here we see that each row is going to represent a student. We have several categories of information about the student, and we see their scores. And so the question that we're going to try and answer with this chart is how well one of the groups in this race and ethnicity category are represented. We're going to try and understand how well group E is represented within this set of data. So let's get started with the default chart. We'll go to our sheet, and let's start by renaming it default. So to build a pie chart, the first thing we're going to do is set our marks type to pie. And then since we're interested in the race and ethnicity, we're going to bring that out to color. And we already have a pie chart. Let's make this fill the entire view so it's easier for all of us to see. Now currently we have a pie chart with 5 equal pieces because we haven't told Tableau how to proportion each of the wedges. And we are going to do that by bringing out this student performance, the row count of this data set, and bring it to angle, because it's the area of the wedge that will be proportional, and the piece that helps us do that is the angle of the wedge. And there we have it. This is the default pie chart found as we can make in Tableau. With this, we could answer the question. We see that group E is this green category found right here. We can look at this chart and see how its part in the whole is. We could answer that question. We're gonna keep going, and we're gonna make a better one. So let's start by just making a copy of our default and start enhancing it, start adding changes. So the first thing that we're going to do is sort the wedges. We're going to do that by coming to our category here, selecting sort. We're going to sort this by a field, and it's already picked one for us, and it's the one we want to use. And so this is the count of the rows, effectively. It's the same thing we added to the angle. We move this aside. We can see now that the wedges are sorted from the smallest, going around clockwise, to the largest. This will help the person viewing the chart better understand the relationship between the wedges. They don't have to just look and compare the areas. They can now see that they are sorted from smallest to largest. So they can already understand that this wedge is smaller than this wedge. The next thing we're going to do is bring the numbers to the party. We're going to add them to the chart. And we're going to do that by once again grabbing the count of rows and adding it to the label. So now the numbers are going to help the viewer, again, look a little deeper into the context, have a greater understanding of the relationship between the data. Knowing that these two pieces are different sizes, that the red one is bigger than the teal one is good, but having the numbers there will help reinforce that, help someone who wants to look a little deeper in. Now I'm going to bring the numbers inside the area of the wedge. We have a lot of space to work with, and so we can do that. So to do that, we're just going to select the wedge, and then as we hover over the label, we find that we can move it. So for each of these, we'll bring them in. This is an aesthetic choice. It helps us utilize the space and bring focus more to the visual than anything else. And let's make them bigger as well. So let's do that. We'll go here and change the font size. That looks good. And let's make them white, so the contrast is a little bit better. Okay, and I actually want to change the color scheme. This is just an aesthetic choice, and also to provide us a little bit of separation from our default. So to do that, I'm actually going to make a copy of our category, our race and ethnicity, because I want the category and our default to be the same. So in normal practice, you probably wouldn't have to do that, but we'll duplicate this, and we're actually going to bring this to the color instead. Now what that did is that actually just reset the position of all of our labels, so they're white and now they're hard to see, but we can just grab them easily and move them back in so we can see it. And now that that's done, we're going to change the color. So we're going to edit these colors. I'm just going to pick a different palette and assign it. Let's see. Is that the one we want? Yeah, let's go with that one. So they're subtle. It just lightened them up a little bit. Superficial, not very important. Since we're doing superficial things, I'm going to go ahead and actually add a border, a white border, just to put a line in between all the wedges. Okay. Over here, let's rename this to what we want it to be, the good pie chart. Now, I want to add a little more to this. I want to have a little bit more control over how this is presented and how this looks, how big it is when it comes out. And so to do that, we're going to put it on a dashboard. So we'll create a new dashboard, and let's just rename this now to the good dashboard. Pie charts in Tableau can easily kind of get out of control with the amount of white space they have. And so we're going to kind of narrow this down to, let's see, 600 by, let's go 475. Now let's reverse that. 475 by 600. That's better. All right, I'm going to start off with all my objects tiled, and I'm going to bring out a vertical container, and then a placeholder for my title. And I'm going to edit the size to be 100. I'm also going to bring out a footer placeholder. And we're going to fix its size to be 25. And you can tell that it's fixed with this icon right here when it turns white rather than the gray, rather than empty. That's how you know it's locked in place. All right, with that, let's go ahead and bring out our chart and plop it in. And it's terrible. That's okay. It's nothing wasn't expected, and we can get it looking really good in just a short minute. First thing I'm going to do is actually grab our legend, and I'm going to bring it down here and put it underneath the pie chart. And so that helps. But we don't want it to take up so much room. There's all of this empty white space that we don't need. So let us arrange the items into a single row. All right, but now we see that we have to toggle back and forth. And if we're going to print this off in a picture, that's not going to help us. But we can adjust the spacing between them. As we come to the edge, we can see that we have this indicator here that we can grab it and move it. So we're going to slowly start bringing this in until all of our groups are present. All right. And in this instance, we don't need it to say copy here. So we're going to double click the title and just drop that off for clarity. All right. Now let's move up to the pie chart. This doesn't look terribly good yet. So first thing, let's drop the chart title. And we still have a lot of white space. So we're going to adjust that by going back to the chart itself and then coming here and adjusting the size. And let's see what this looks like. All right, we've filled up as much as we can. If we start going any farther, we're going to lose the circular nature of our pie chart. That puts the numbers in a good position, back where we had originally thought of to put them. And so that's looking good. Let's go ahead and add our title. I can find it. There it is. So we'll add our title in here. And let's make it size 24. All right, good, nice and easy to read. Let's go ahead and add our footer while we're here. All right, and I like to make the footers kind of a grayer color, so they're there. They can be red, but they're not going to stand out. Okay. We have our sorted categories. We have our numbers to give us greater depth. We have a title that tells us what this information is about. We have our legend that helps us map the colors to the groups that we're interested in. And we can see that these are not sorted. We lost our sort when I changed the color. Let's go back and sort them. Once more time, we select the sort. We select the field. It's the right one we want. And once again, it moved all of our legend, all of our marks. We'll grab those real fast, bring them back. In fact, let's do it from the dashboard so that we can get them exactly where we want them. Okay, one more. There. Now we have our sorted categories. We have our marks. We have our numbers, our labels that tell us what the numbers are. We can see that group E is here, and we can see how it relates to the whole rest of the data set. Not too bad. It's good. We're going to keep going. We're going to turn this good pie chart into a better one. So start once again by copying our chart and just rename this now. Oops, did not need a second copy of that. Always right next to each other. Always getting in my way. I always click the wrong one. Well, I don't always click the wrong one, but occasionally. So let's go duplicate, we already did. And let's go to rename to be better. This one's going to be our better. We have our good and our better. Okay. So our question is about group E, and we want to focus in on that, and that will help make this chart better. And with pie charts, there's a danger of putting too many wedges in there. You've probably seen pie charts that have a whole stack of thin wedges at one end, or sometimes even spread throughout the chart. And they're not adding any value. It's making it more distracting, in fact, usually for the viewer. And so we're going to focus in on just the group E story. And we're going to do that by coming over here to the legend, and we're going to select all of the other wedges, and we're going to click this paperclip icon here, which is going to group them together. All right. So now we have just two groups. We have the group we care about and everything else. So let's go in to the group. We're going to edit it, and let's just do a quick rename. We can see that all of our other groups are here, and we select the rename option, and let's just call it others. There is another option for things that aren't grouped, but in this case, we want those things that are grouped to be our others. Okay. And that has resorted things for us, and it's the way we want them now, so we don't have to go and readjust our sort. Now our labels are still here hanging out. Once again, they got moved. Let's bring them in so we can see them. Oops, that was not what I wanted. Select the wedge and get the label and bring it in. Great. Now, I would like to turn these numbers into percents. That, again, focuses the story a little more. Once you start getting into these large numbers, the viewer has to think more about it. You have to do more to understand the relationship between these numbers. Whereas keep making them percents, putting them between 0 and 100, makes it a little easier. Makes it so the viewer doesn't have to work as hard. And so to do that, we just come over here, add a table calculation to percent of total. All right, and we don't need 2 decimal places, so let's format it. Number format is here, percent, 0 decimals. Awesome. And on the other dashboard, we had the legend, and now we only have two groups on that legend, and I'd like to just not have the legend at all and reclaim some of that space. So we're going to do that by taking the name of our category and adding it to the label. Any of these options here, you can, if you use the Control or Command and then select it with the mouse button, and you get that this icon with the plus symbol, it means it'll make a copy of it, and you can go and add it somewhere else. So now we have the labels with the numbers as percents. Now I want to modify this just a little bit more. I want the numbers to be a little more prominent than the label. So to do that, I'm going to come into the label options and select this more options button here. And that will let us edit this directly. If we wanted to add additional text, we could do it here, but also lets us format these two things independently. So over the top piece, let's go ahead. Let's make that nice and big. We're actually going to reduce the size of the label. We want it to be there as supporting. We don't want it to be in the forefront. So let's apply that and see how that looks. Turns out I got them backwards. I did not read what they were. So let's reverse their order here. And we're going to make the group small and the number larger. The proportions we got were good. I just had them backwards. Apply that this time and see, yes, that's much better. Okay, we can close that. And these colors aren't helping us. So let's pick a new set of colors for this. Better color palette. And for group E, I'm going to highlight that. I'm going to pick a color that I want to stand out. And for the other category, I'm actually going to pick a gray. I think this gray, let's see, which gray will be better? This one or this one? Let's go for the lighter gray. Because we want the information to be there, but we don't need it to stand out. We don't need to draw the attention to it. We actually want to all the viewers to focus on this piece of this pie. So that'll help us do that. All right, so those are the changes that we want to make directly to the pie chart. Let's go ahead and put that on the dashboard, just like we did for our good pie chart. We'll start by duplicating this dashboard and renaming it. And first thing we're going to do is we're just going to swap out the chart by using this option here. All right, so that is swapped out. Now this is where the legend was. And you see it's coming to fill this whole space. And we don't even need it anymore, so we're just going to remove it. That's our first step. Great. And then we're going to remove the title. All right. See, that gets us a lot more space. Lets us have our pie chart be even bigger. Let's rearrange these so they look better in our space. Great. And let's take a look at our title. I think that's one of the things we can make better. If we pick a title that directly answers our question, it helps the student, it helps the viewer even more. I think we'll have to reduce the size because there's more text there, so it will fit in our size 100 box. It might be a little small. Let's see if we can do better. Nope. If we make it too big, we see that the text starts to float off the side and overflow it a little bit. So let's go back, change it back to 18. There we have everything fitting. All right, so now we have a title that directly answers our question. It says that group E is not largely represented among students. After reading the title, the viewer can come down here and their eyes are going to be drawn to this blue wedge. And they can see that the prominent number there is 14%, which is now matches what their eyes are telling them, that this blue piece is not a large portion of the whole. And that more clearly and more directly answers the question for the viewer. And so here we have our better pie chart. Let me save all these out as pictures, and let's compare them all to see how they look side by side. Okay, so I have all of them up on the screen, and let's take a first look at the default. And you can understand what I mean about having more control over how this is exported. We'd have to continue to fiddle with this, and we could make this print out a little bit better. But we can also just take the extra step and put it on a dashboard, which gives us much, much more control. So now we can see our default here. Here's our good pie chart within the dashboard. We have our legend, all of the things that we discussed. And we have our better pie chart, which focuses more directly, more specifically onto our story. It answers it directly and highlights just the piece we're interested in. And this is going to help the viewer. It will make the pie chart feel better. It won't be distracting. You will reduce the number of wedges, and this again will help not distract the viewer. And there we have it, a better pie chart in Tableau. Let's review what we did to make the pie chart better. The first thing we did was to order or sort the category so that the viewer had an easier time making those comparisons. We also added labels, both text and category, to the pie chart. And this helps the viewer from having to scan over the whole page to find what category it was, and also use those numbers to make more direct comparisons. We also took the wedges that weren't directly answering our question and we grouped them together. And this helped us focus in on the one wedge that helped us answer our question and its relationship to the rest of the data. We even took our question and answered it directly in the title, and that helps the viewer so that when they are reviewing the rest of the chart, they already have the answer in their head. They're gaining just additional information from the rest of the chart. This makes it easier for them to process. And I think the chart looks pretty good. And I hope that with what I've shown you, you can make your pie chart a better one. Thank you for watching.